Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
السلام عليكم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
السلام عليكم.
Yes. In fact, it's an honor to have Dr. AbdurRahman, Dr. Daniel McBride, and in fact, we know each other more than 35 years. I become an imam in the Islamic Center Boca Raton. Used to be a plaza, and from plaza the high school, and now a huge masjid. But when we have in the plaza, where I used to teach Minhaj al-Muslim and also fiqh. And mashallah, by the way, he became Muslim. He came to Florida Muslim. And he got wife, no kids. And not every year have a kid. He is the one delivered the kids. All his kids in the house. All his kids in the house. Especially a hurricane came to Florida. And no way Jose to go to the hospital. In the house. So mashallah. Not only that, myself and Dr. McBride and his family, we always together. In fact, I got sick for a long time. My wife, I was completely paralyzed. Completely paralyzed after my liver transplant. My wife, she called AbdurRahman. He was in Orlando, and we are in Fort Lauderdale. To come more than 3 hours driving. He come every week to treat me, and not only the machine, to make me to do karate, to be a human being again. Al-Fadl Lillah, Thumma, good brothers and good friends. Since we love each other for the sake of Allah, nothing else. Now, he became a doctor, chiropractor. And now, we have our Imam of the Masjid Islamic Center, Boca Raton. And now every Saturday night, I go to Saturday Night Live. Until now, more than 35 years, they're doing that until now. Then I invite people come, like Brother Yusuf, him, Dr. Masad come. And now he become a doctor, chiropractor. He want to exercise with someone, what is a chiropractor is. They choose me. Before I become imam, by the way, I used to be an actor. كنت ممثل أنا بالأول. And he tried to crack my neck or my back. I act. He thought that I was, I didn't believe it. What? Sheikh Ibrahim, impossible, he will act like this. Because I told him that I'm acting. In fact, it's called today. I go to the gym after Fajr, I go to the gym. But even within even 2 minutes, he fixed my neck. I can fight again now. I really, and actually, I invite him to come in Ramadan. But unfortunately, it's hard to get him in. But Alhamdulillah, he accepted my invitation. Alhamdulillah, it's an honor always to have him. Abu Malik, his son Malik, and his name AbdurRahman, changed name, but his younger son, his name AbdurRahman. And his daughter here had a master's degree, his daughter also, she's got a chiropractor also. But I invited her to come here. I told you I'm a coward. She do basketball, she's sport, mashallah, is one of champion of basketball, mashallah, she's here in the back. Now, أهلا وسهلا to our masjid in Myrtle Beach. Yeah, hello.
Assalamu alaikum.
I also have a question, inshallah, after that. And some exercise.
What we wanted to do was, originally we had planned to talk about, let me jump back to the introduction first. I've been a chiropractor for approximately 30 years now. It sounded like it was brand new. The newness is the functional neurology that I do. I focus very strongly on the brain. And what we do with that is, without being negative, you would go to a neurologist, they'll diagnose you with something, they'll look at your MRIs, they'll look at pictures, they'll figure out where the problem is. With the functional side, that's not what I do. With the functional side, what I do is I'll let you tell me that the neurologist can tell me what they saw in the MRI, this post-surgery, post-stroke, whatever takes place. My side then, that we've added to the chiropractic, is the function of that area that you have an injury or a loss in. So there's a real cool word, if you want to, because I'll start using science words. Be patient with me, because I get stuck in science words. The idea is neuroplasticity, meaning nervous system, plasticity, pliable, you can change it. Every time you learn a new language, you change something. You started other pathways. You've expanded your present pathways. Right now, my daughter and I were talking about, we want to learn sign language, inshallah. Because imagine, like sign language. Number one, you're learning a new language. Everybody says, oh my gosh, if you learn a new language, you're smarter. Is when you age, you should learn a new language, learn a new skill. Imagine you learn to talk. You're still using words. You're still trying to stimulate Broca's area and all that stuff in your head. But now you're using a different motor pathway. You're not using your mouth to do it anymore. You're actually using your hands to communicate. Wouldn't that be a cool new stimulation for your brain? I just can't wait. I'm about to take an international exam. After that, I'm going to start my sign language stuff, because I just think that would be a neat language to have. And now you've got to use your whole body to do it, if that makes sense, neuroplasticity. But the functional neurology side, what I'd like to do, if we can, is I'd like to quote, we gave a talk once before, and we mentioned forelock, being ripped out by the forelock, grabbed by the forelock. So I'd like to give you a couple of Quranic references and then a hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'll read it.
No, hold on. Before that, actually, I mentioned something important. One, we make Umrah together. And the Umrah, before the Umrah, in order to make fundraising for our masjid in Islamic Center, Boca Raton, we travel Europe, we travel Saudi Arabia. We make Umrah. In Umrah, we sit together in the same, next to each other. Believe it or not, he asked a question, an ayah, hadith about his science. And guess what? He published the first book after the Umrah. That's why he's using his knowledge from the Quran. What we learn in Umrah is the first one, but many books. And that's, imagine that, like 7 hours to Saudi Arabia, Umrah, and we visit some people who get money for the masjid, and we came back, same thing. And we arrived Florida, he published a book about Islam and science. Subhanallah, jazakallah.
It's because it's really cool that the blessings that we have as Muslims are just, every time I learn something new, I'm reminded that I just didn't know. It's already there. We don't invent anything. I don't think. I think what we do is we put together what's already there, and now we start using it correctly. This I use with the Imam. I use a lot of cold laser, and there are cells in your body, especially like the brain, where I use a lot, because I do a lot of brain trauma now. It's true, red light and infrared light work. Thousands of articles. Anybody that says they don't ask them for any other information. Thousands of research articles. The veterinarians were the ones that introduced the whole rest of the world to it, because they did the experiments, testing to see if it makes somebody better, if it heals something, if it does something. They did it on animal studies first. We do a lot of laser light. So imagine how many really knew you had cells in your body that are light sensitive that help provide energy. And I'll say mitochondria, and everyone will say the powerhouse or the engine of the cell. How did we not know we had cells in our body that can use light energy to do more work? So if your body's trying to heal, then infrared and red penetrate the skin better. It's amazing. I didn't invent that, but I read about it. I found out about it. It was already there. Now I use it like crazy in my office. That's what we do I do all the time. So it's every time we learn something about Islam within our family, within that work, I learn something about science. They just go together all the time. So then I asked the Imam to explain it to me, and it's amazing when your religion and your science, everything you believe in, match up. I mean, there's just no arguments here, for me. So it's really interesting. Okay, what I'd like to do is I'll mention the forelock. Now, it's really important that there is also a hadith by the Prophet that mentions they use also not meaning just the forelock hair or just the forehead, because obviously some of us don't have forelock hair. So it must mean something more than that if I get a hadith saying he's got all of our forelocks in his hand, right? So it's got to be something more than forelock with your hair. But there is a reference to the hair and Abu Jahl and da-da-da-da. Okay, the first one in Surah 11.
Surah?
Surah 11. Yeah, my Arabic is, I apologize, it's horrible. So I tend to do the numbers in the English.
What number?
56.
Right here.
So if I can start with 54, all that we say is that some of our gods have seized you with evil madness. This is people of who describing him. Some of our gods. He said, I call Allah to witness and bear you witness that I am free from that which you ascribe as partners in worship with him, Allah. So plot against me, all of you, and give me no respite. Verse 56, I put my trust in Allah, my Lord and your Lord. There is not a moving living creature, but he has grasp of its forelock. Verily, my Lord is on the straight path of truth. So if you turn away, still I have conveyed the message with which I was sent to you. My Lord will make another people succeed you, and you will not harm him in the least. Surely my Lord is the guardian over all things.
إن نقول إلا اعتراك بعض آلهتنا بسوء قال إني أشهد الله وأشهدوا أني بريء مما تشركون من دونه تكيدوا جميعا ثم لا تنظرون إني توكلت على الله ربي وربكم ما من دابة إلا هو آخذ بناصيتها إن ربي على صراط مستقيم.
And then if anyone has a Quran with you, turn to chapter 55, Ar-Rahman. And then verse 41. And I'll start with verse 40 to remind us. Then which of the blessings of your Lord will you both, gentlemen, deny? The mujrimun, the disbelievers in the oneness of Allah and his messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, etc., will be known by their marks, and they will be seized by their forelocks and their feet. Then which of the blessings of your Lord will you both deny?
What ayah?
I'm sorry, 41.
Oh, 41. يعرف المجرمون بسرهم فيأخذ بالنواصي والأقدام بأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون يطوفون بينها وبين حميم آن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
And then, no, 6.
Surah number 6.
I missed it.
96. What surah? No, the sixth.
Allah.
Huh?
Allah.
Al-Alaq. Al-Alaq.
It's my Arabic, right?
And by the way, he used to come every Salat al-Fajr, every day. Salat al-Fajr he used to come to the masjid, and I used to teach hadith, and also one word. Him and brother, his name Hassan Sharif. Arabic word. Anyway, every week, one statement.
Your words are kind of falling out.
Yeah, good.
15, 16.
15 and 16. Okay.
And the reference is about Abu Jahl. Knows he not that Allah does see what he does? Nay, if he, Abu Jahl, ceases not, we will catch him by his forelock, a lying, sinful forelock. Then let him call upon his council of helpers. We will call all the guards of hell. Nay, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, do not obey him, fall prostrate and draw near to Allah. But we started at 14.
Okay. ألم يعلم بأن الله يرى كلا لئن لم ينته لنسفعا بالناصية ناصية كاذبة خاطئة فليدع ناديه سندعو الزبانية كلا لا تطعه واسجد واقترب.
Now, the reason I mention those is because of how important that frontal lobe obviously is, that forelock obviously is. And then we have another hadith by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I don't have it. We got it from Imam Ahmed's Musnad. Oh my Lord, I am your slave and the son of your slave and the son of your bondmaid.
اللهم إني عبدك ابن عبدك ابن ناصيتي بيدك ماض في حكمك عدل في قضاءك. نعم.
My forelock is in your hands.
Yeah. اللهم إني عبدك ابن عبدك ابن عبدك ناصيتي بيدك ماض في حكمك عدل في قضاءك. أسألك أن اللهم إني عبدك ابن عبدك ابن عبدك ناصيتي بيدك ماض في حكمك عدل في قضاءك. ناصيتي بيدك ماضي في حكمه عدل في قضاء. And the end of the Nasir, the meaning he's talking about the hateful, the Nasir.
Now think about this. Why we don't talk about the back of the head, we don't talk about grabbing by the feet, we don't talk about your vision, right? How important is your vision? You look at things, you see something, you lust after something, you pursue things you're not supposed to. But the idea is all the decisions are made inside that forehead. And we've got more than just the hair, because some scholars talk about grabbing Abu Jahl by the forelock of his hair, meaning he was so vain and so aware of that he was actually too aware and vain about his appearance and all the prideful of yourself and everything we should try to avoid. But all these others, even the Prophet sallallahu mentions the fact that Allah has him by his decision-making area of his head. And I mention those because now let's go into some science. When we talk about the frontal lobe, the forelock, all that stuff, there are also what we would consider 5, this is called cortex, you got 5 lobes. You got 5, what we call subcortical, 5 sub-areas in just your frontal lobe that all influence actions and decision-making. Really, really cool. And how many pillars of Islam do we have?
5.
Really cool. My daughter pointed that out in our conversation up here. She actually said, Paul says, while we're talking back and forth, and she's like, oh, make sure you know it. And, one of my greatest critics, really smart about it. The idea is that she said, look at how this all ties together and look how we've got this, and then this makes it easier, and this is how we understand it, and then the science matches the religion, and then the religion sort of overlaps and reinforces what we should be doing, and then Islam tells us exactly how to do it. Actually, before we go into the 5 subcortical areas, it's very important to remember that your brain, the two different sides, okay? In English, the word is hemisphere. You got a right hemisphere, you got a left hemisphere. So think about what takes place here. Hemi means part of, right? And it's like half or part of or a portion of a sphere. So now I've got two hemispheres, two halves. There's a whole bunch of conflict, and it's like a waste of time. Like we talk about arguing about certain things, total waste of time. You've got two hemispheres. Very rarely do two halves do exactly the same thing. It just doesn't work that way. Why do you have two halves instead of one whole? The brain is so complicated that Allah created us and it's split, and they have similar areas, but they do overlapping but different things. I might have, for example, my right brain is going to be my big picture side. Really important from the Ramadan talk we were planning. You've got a big picture. So what would the left brain do with that? Then the left brain says, you got the big picture, so I don't need to waste time on the big picture. I'm going to go after the details, because redundancy slows us down. If I do something, I look at the brother and I say, brother, I've got this ball, I'm going to throw it to you. He looks, he spaces it out. How do I react, right? He's going to say, okay, he's throwing ball. Now the left side kicks in. How do I respond? What do I do to keep that ball from hitting me? Well, if I throw it like this, it says I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to very gently respond. I'm going to initiate a detailed movement and catch the ball. Now, if I bring it up here, we reevaluate. The big picture is he's throwing the ball, but that doesn't look gentle anymore. So it totally changes what he initiates, the details. Does that make sense? So this is the big picture. This is the details. Picture how that works within Islam and Ramadan, for example. Well, within Islam, my right hemisphere, my big picture, my dreams, my goals, oh my gosh, every one of us here should, everything we're told the Quran was clear in that one verse, we are here to worship Allah. That's the big picture. Because if we worship Allah, we make it to where? Jannah. So my big picture is Jannah. Then what do we get? We get all these little descriptions all over the place. You know, if you literally try it like this, I'm not good at imagining, but imagine if you would just give me like 30 seconds. Everyone, even the people listening, if you want to, you can keep your eyes open, but close your eyes and use, this is right brain, left brain. Use your right brain, picture what you think and what you see in Jannah. Your picture, not mine, but yours. Now, I know there's Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us that we will be amongst the people we love. We can think of a food or a fruit or a vegetable or whatever. It will appear we don't even have to look for it. We will have the most beautiful green lawns. We will have the most beautiful forest, trees, running water of milk and honey. We'll have paved gold. We'll have our castles that represent just all these blessings. For me, think about the most important blessing. I literally want to sit there with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There. So I'm envisioning the highest levels. I also want, and then with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, inshallah, we'll see Abu Bakr, we'll see Umar, we'll see Uthman, we'll see Ali. We'll see all the people that we have ever been trained to look up to and admire. Then, who do we want there along with them? Our parents, our kids, our families, our close friends, you, of course. Picture that in your head. I really get locked in on my kids. The idea is, and well, the side note is I'm a single father. My kids, I'm locked in on my kids. Think about that. Now open your eyes. That's all right brain, right? That's my right brain. That's great. So what? If I don't move it over to my left brain, if Islam, following Islam, if that doesn't move it over to my left brain, it's a dream. It's not even a goal anymore, right? There's no time frame. There's no steps. There's no action. So now the left brain kicks in, and what do? We've got the 5 pillars of Islam. You don't have to do anything else if you follow those. Make your shahada first. That way everything counts. Pray a lot. That's the second thing that's counted, isn't it? Then we got the other 3. It's literally, we are right brain, figure out the goal and the dream. Left brain, just follow the 5 pillars of Islam. Our religion engages both hemispheres. The others don't. You can sit and meditate as much as you want to. You know what I'm saying? But that's hardly an action step. Although science shows that, there's a lot of good research on that. But it's really not a religious thing. Yes?
To add in this the what you're speaking of.
Can you come here?
Say it.
Can you come here?
It's gonna be first.
Okay, we'll have a chair for her. Yeah, I make aqiqah, by the way. Her and all sisters and brothers, I make aqiqah for them. Alhamdulillah. And the microphone is here.
Alhamdulillah, when we talk about the right hemisphere of the brain and imagining where we will be in Jannah, where we will be with our family, the left brain, what we're trying to get at is the left brain gives us the action steps, right? And alhamdulillah, in Islam, we've been given action steps to success. Allah has blessed us with the recipe, or I play basketball. He gave us the playbook on how to be successful humans. Number one, what do we do in the morning? We wake up in the morning for Fajr. We wake up with a positive mindset. He puts us immediately into a place of pursuing Jannah. He immediately wakes us up and says, imagine Jannah, right? And for the rest of the day, you put your action steps into play. And for the rest of the year, you put your action steps into play, right? You pay your charity, you pray 5 times a day, you go to masjid, you make hajj if you can. Allah gives us the language of the brain and how to be successful, not only in our afterlife, but in this life, of how to, what you're getting at, I'm sorry. I can see. Sorry. I'm sorry, I just wanted to, he mentioned it earlier, but we talked about it in the car, and I think it's such a beautiful thing that we were, without us even knowing, we just found out most of this in neurology within the last 20 years. But without ever knowing, Allah is always working for us. Alhamdulillah, He made us, and again, gave us this recipe on how to be so successful. And it's so beautiful when you think about Islam. And not only is it the language of the brain, but just having faith that He's always working for you, and He knows best because His steps are always in action. That's it. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. Because think about what takes place there. We're told it should be easy. Absolutely. And you need to take action steps. It's from a quote we were talking about earlier. Goal-directed behavior is based on goal-directed movement. One of the best ways to change, and there's the hadith of an early Sahaba that remember the angels moved the land so that he was closer to moving away, and because of his goal-directed, he changed, walking away from being a murderer and a killer and everything else he did. He said, go, get away from that stuff. And he was and our intentions, you got intentions, you got actions. He made the actions that reflected his intentions. Here in English, here in America, what do we say? We say, man, your actions speak a lot louder than your words, don't they? You can say whatever you want to, but it's how you behave that displays your intention, your movement. And the brain, the whole foundation of the brain is layered on movement. Uncoordinated people Because the cerebellum smooths out your emotions, your thoughts, and your physical action. Uncoordinated people usually have uncoordinated emotions. Goofy people, I'm so uncoordinated, I'm always, right? And they talk that way. Uncoordinated movement, uncoordinated mental fabric.
Allah say, it's very, very important hadith Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, الذي قتل 100 people. 100 نفس قتل. 99 actually, he went to have for tawbah. He went, give me a very important hadith. He went to one of the shuyukh. He did Allah, after I killed 99, is Allah will forgive me? And he said, no way. And he made 100. He killed him in the spot. But after that, he went to Sheikh, but with knowledge. Sheikh with ilm. قال, I killed 100. You think Allah will forgive me? قال, ولما لا? Why not? But the key, as AbdurRahman said, the doctor said, go this area, this city, very corrupted city. But in the city, you are over there, the righteous people. The key, as the brother had the intention to change. He left, and even before he reached that, he died. But Allah, the angel, which one? In the hellfire or the Jannah? And one of the angels took the respect, which one, if he die, where the kuffar is, or Jannah, and Allah spread it to the side of the Jannah and was saved. But the key what? إنما الأعمال the intention.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's why now, if I can, we'll jump into the sciencey stuff, and I'll try to make it as not boring as possible.
Yeah.
We have 5 different areas. You've got a motor, premotor, and supplementary motor area, and this is what's going to control all of your actions. You've got what we call, and if you want to, you can Google it up. We're recording it for it's saved too, right?
Yes.
So
It's recorded.
And then you've also got something called the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. Now, this is going to control your executive function. That's your planning, your actions, your deciding to do things. All of this is in your frontal lobe. Then you've got your frontal eye field. Think about what that means. That controls your eye movement. So if I'm thinking about Jannah, I'm looking at certain things. I'm reading Quran more. You pay attention to what you're looking at, is what you do. So frontal eye field. Then you also have the orbital frontal cortex, right in this area. This controls our social and emotional behavior, acting appropriately and being good Muslim. And then you have your anterior cingulate, which is just behind that area. And that is actually your motivation. These are all considered frontal lobe areas. Now think about how they tie together. You're literally, say your vision. I'm looking around, here we are, and I'm paying attention, you're paying attention. We're trying to learn something, we're sharing, and we're focused on Islam and Allah in general. Then your motivation. How motivated and how close are those together? Your motivation to do the right thing, to follow through on the good intention. Your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is amazing. You've got this area here that literally, that is where you decide what you're going to do and what you're not going to want to do. And remember, you get rewarded on making a decision to do a bad thing, then deciding not to do it. Initiation and ambition. And that's another big thing about you got your big picture, your detail, you're wanting to be in Jannah, sitting with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and all the family and loved ones, and then initiating actions. The same thing is initiation and information. This side inhibits. So imagine your right dorsal prelateral frontal cortex says, holy smokes, we're not supposed to do that. The left is your approach behavior. This is your avoidance behavior. So this is initiation. This is go, 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 go. Every time you think about something, it bubbles up and you want to do it. But you're not supposed to. So then equally balanced. At the same time, your right side fires and says, no, stop. And all of this is grasped by Allah. We're not grabbed by the back of the head. We're not grabbed by the side. You know, like in the movies, you don't smack somebody. You know, that's not what we do, is the back of the head. Everything is that for Allah. And the Quran has at least 3 verses that reference how important this area is. Now, like I started out with, if you learn functional neurology, then you learn this function. So say I've got a problem, I might do a test and I'll tell you, okay, look at my fingers, and the minute a finger moves, your eyes jump to it and jump back. That's called a saccade. But the idea is, if I have a problem with a saccade, I know there's a problem up here because you can't initiate the movement, right? So now I can look at that, and then in our case, I'll laser the area that isn't functioning correctly. Now, with that, think about it, that's in the frontal lobe. So now as a Muslim, how important is it for me to stay all over your frontal lobes? I mean, a simple test is finger taps. You literally take this and you get your thumb. Everybody right here, do it right now. If you want to in the audience, everybody, you guys don't have to do it, I'll see it. But what you're gonna do is, as big as you can, bring them together, bring them apart, include the thumb, watch yourself and your neighbors, because most of us will get this going. I want both. Get them going as fast as you can. Faster, 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 faster. Keep the thumb going. The big thing is the thumb. And big movements, that's good movement. Now get it faster. Get it faster, big, right. Now, what you can do, while I'm testing patients, I'll literally look at just one hand. I'll literally look at their mouths. I'll look at the other hand. Someone will be standing there and they're working so hard, and this one is down by their leg going too. And I'm like, there's a problem there because my direction was only this. So now you also have to initiate and follow directions. Or they are so trying to stimulate, because think about, I'll diverge a little bit and you can nudge me. Think about talking, mouth movement, one of the most complicated physical actions you can do. I've got to create the right breath, the right shape. I've got to tie the right muscles together to get one letter out, so that you know what the letter is. A, B, C, then I've got to tie all those letters together, maybe alter the sound a little bit to get a word out, to get a sentence out, to get my whole thought process out. Think about how complicated the movement that is. So that's why I say I'm looking at your mouth when I ask you to do a physical, complicated activity. Okay, go. And literally, or I'll see you chewing. Because you're stimulating so much motor activity, you can't do it. So you're engaging other muscles to stimulate the brain even more to follow my direction. And then, like I said, they start to fall off. The thumb doesn't move anymore because they're so busy trying to get space that it becomes this. And I'll say, don't forget your thumb. And then the mouth works even harder. I'm like, you're going to cramp up and won't be able to eat dinner. I mean, it's like, they literally picture, you're going. And those are real simple tests. But then I say, okay, I start lasering like his motor strip or whatever, frontal lobe, especially up here usually. But now I test and treat the same way. You think about it, both sides should work equally. We tend to have the dominant hand in the weak hand. But they should both go really, really well. So then if one side is off, then I target that side. If the other side's off, I target that side. Does that make sense? And then just as a side note, if you're using the right hand, it's left brain. If you're using the left hand, it's right brain. You can narrow it down. Or even the eye movement. Go ahead.
You did that to me. I didn't know. Oh, you're testing me. Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah. And it's really cool is the biplane. Think about how you can trick the brain, because I'll tell you in a good way, I hope. I lie all the time. It's no big deal. Get on the live platform. Because the brain believes, like there are doctors out there, they're like, oh man, you got to scare the patient because they don't listen. If you say, oh, we can work it out, they don't listen. But I'm not that. That's not the way I talk. I'm like, oh my God, we can solve almost everything. Because you've probably been depressed and sad enough, right? There's all this negative, oh my God. You see in the commercials, the drug commercials, if you don't take our drugs, you'll never get better. Yeah, sure, you're born genetically deficient in that drug, and I'm not, right? So imagine the bipolar. We're actually tricking the brain. You're on that platform, and it's going like 90 a second even. This thing, you're convinced your brain, like in a scary movie, you paid all that money and you go and you jump anyway, right? But it's just a movie. Why would you jump? It's not really there because your brain can't tell a joke until you learn humor. Same thing with a vibe plate. Your brain is on that vibe platform. You're not going to fall. I know you're not. It's just this. So imagine you're on this. Your brain is so stimulated that everything lights up to keep your balance because it's convinced the minute it drops this way, you're going to fall and tumble and end up out in the lobby somewhere in the office. If it goes this way, you're convinced you're going back. Now it's going that fast or even faster, actually. Then I start lasering the brain. And remember, with red light and infrared light, you've got cells, chromophores or chromatophores, depending on who research read. You've got these cells in your brain that are working so hard, and the ones that are most active are going to absorb the most light, and that's our rehabilitation study. Does that make sense? I mean, that's a little too doctory, but what time do we have?
I think we start 45 minutes now. We'll make it back. Question and answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Absolutely. So the idea is, if we go right back to the Quran and the 3 verses and then the Hadith, you literally have to understand, like with my functional neurology, how important this area is. The Quran brings it up at least 3 times. We're referencing that. And that the hand, the Hadith says the hand is there all the time. Even,
how beautiful is that?
Right.
Yes.
The warning. So how important is it to take care of that frontal lobe? And then, like I said, I just told you what each area does up there. And you can look at it again or ask afterward, and I can review it real quick. And then again, right brain, left brain. And to close with a couple things, remember, the brain is a sensory receptor. We've got a lot of senses. We've got vision. See this eye, like over here, that crosses over. See this side, like these 2 eyes are this way, that crosses over. So if I want to stimulate my right brain, I'm looking out of the left side of my eye. If I want the other way. You've got hearing, that crosses over. Listen to the Quran in this ear. It crosses to stimulate that side. Listen to it in this ear. It crosses over. Your right brain likes the colors, blue, green, indigo, the cooler colors. Your left brain likes what we call hot colors, red, yellow, and orange. So think about, literally, we train this stuff all the time. This is how I target things. Literally, something as simple as colors. And then smells. The one thing that doesn't cross over is smell. So if I got a patient with a left brain deficiency, I might put, a lot of times I like to use the favorite smell, but I use a lot of peppermint. Peppermint and lemon are really considered strong smells. They're on an equal footing, and I like those. But if I want to stimulate this brain over here, I might put a little peppermint oil on their collar on this side so it hits the right nostril first. Or if I'm trying to stimulate the left brain, I'll put smell over here. It's another sense. Or touch. If you're weak on one side, say if you had a left brain deficiency, I might talk to you all the time, and I'm going to touch this side all the time because now we've got touch. Or if I want to stimulate one side of the brain with a vibe platform, I'll put that opposite foot on the vibe plate, and they'll stand on a flat level surface with the other foot, so that I'm not stimming that at all. Does that make sense? So literally, I talk to a patient, I had a patient come in with a stroke. What's it look like? I'm getting carried away. Right? All your muscles work because you're stuck in flexion. Isn't that what we usually see? The leg, everything, the foot is turned out because the glutes are flexed and the knee is bent. And so what do? I know the muscles work. So I had a patient come in, she had a stroke 4 months ago. I started whacking her triceps with a reflex hand. Started stimming that. Then I put her on a vibe plate because that ramped up her brain. Almost all my stroke patients get a vibe plate exercise. So literally, within 30 minutes of being in the office, her arm was hanging straight. Because the muscle still works. She didn't have an arm stroke. She had a brain stroke, but the muscles still work because she's stuck in flexion. So her flexors work. What we call that is flexor escape. They overpower the extensor. The idea is the flexors escape. They overpower the extensors and get stuck this way. So what do I want to do? I want to stimulate the extensor. You can put a muscle stim, the TENS unit, and the back of the forearm to open up the hands and we get the reflexes. Man, I'm not lying. By the time she left, within an hour, we did the exam, we did some stuff, and I said, man, how long was that? And I said, do you mind if I do this over and over and over? Put her on the bike platform and just started hitting her gently. And literally, by the time she left, the arm was straight again. It doesn't happen all the time right away. But think about that stuff.
Think of how much now that I'm thinking, sorry, but how much stimulation that we get in Islam. We have to, in our prayer, we bow. All the movements we have in prayer, or when we're listening.
Let it be your exercise, right?
Yeah, we actually were supposed to have a course about salah and exercise. We are planning to do that, and soon, inshallah, we're going to do it. Yes, inshallah. Thank you. That's a very good idea. Yes.
And when we're listening to our Imam say,
Yeah.
seriously,
honestly, Allah, the excellent exercise. I mentioned that many times in Jummah and lecture here. Yes.
And that we have to do it 5 times a day. I mean, the movement and listening to the recitation.
Exactly, 5 times. 5 salawat every day, 5 times, and excellent exercise. But the way, صلوا كما رأيتموني أصلي. That's the key. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, I mean, those are all of this. We are sensory beings. We feel, we hear, we smell, we touch. What else did I say? We see. All of those we use in functional neurology. Every single one of them.
Takbir! MashaAllah, very I like that.
Any questions right here?
And before
There's a lot
live,
of,
okay, any question? Any question?
I have a question.
Yes.
So,
For the mom or my daughter?
no,
No, I'm just kidding.
So what's the effect of meditation on that?
Okay, there's a real cool, a lot of research on it.
The question online. Yeah, what's the best meditation for the exercise, right?
No, what's the
effect?
The effect of the meditation.
Sorry,
The effect.
What's the effect? How does the meditation affect the brain? Think about what we're talking about with, if I can say, because there's a lot of research out about that. Let me keep it simple because I got a little complicated. I might confuse myself soon. The idea is that, think about that focused attention. You've got your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, your intention, your conscious, your executive decision. I'm not going to solve any business problems. I'm not going to do anything right now. When you close your eyes, we still say, like I did, envision what your dream is, what you want to see in Jannah. Your eyes are closed. You can't see anything, right? But you're still engaging all these senses and your brain's still there. And then think about with meditation, they've got training words or concentration sounds. You're really trying to get all of the stimulation into one focused area. I'm using a new device that helps me focus my attention. And it's like a brain pulse ox. If you know what a pulse ox is, you put it on your fingers, hospital, and it tells you what your heart rate and your blood oxygen levels are. I think of it as a pulse ox for the brain, for the frontal lobes. And it does the same thing. I literally focus on what they have there. And I don't meditate well. Obviously, I'm always all over the place. But the idea is that meditation allows you, it trains you, neuroplasticity. You're training to get rid of all of the distraction. now you can focus on just maybe being quiet, being healthy, work on your breathing. They say focus on your breath, focus on just, you've got all these techniques that bring it together to focus on whatever your one thing is. When the intrusive thoughts come in, let them go, maybe let them drift through, don't fight with them, but focus on something. That's the key to success is, again, and imagine you're engaging, if I can go right back to right brain, left brain.
Yeah, that's what I actually wanted to know. So
Yes.
how is that significant?
Yeah. Sorry. I used to be a school teacher too. I'll over explain everything. The idea is, think about what you're doing. You say, man, I'd like to relax. I'd like to focus. And then you've got another area of your brain that's called your basal ganglia, where your habits live. Well, most of your habits are action steps.
The best ones or everything?
Everything. So what you've got is this initiation. I'm going to initiate my yoga. And all these things start bubbling up. You're sitting there, however you do it. And okay, I'm trying not to move. But what are your muscles designed to do? Move. So now you've got to inhibit muscular activity. Okay, I want to breathe. I want to breathe more. No, slow it down. You see what I'm saying? So now I've got all this stuff. This action step is meditating. Even though you're trying not to move, you're trying not to do things. But then my right side kicks in and inhibits all the unwanted actions. Does that make sense? I didn't get too carried away. So
I wanted to know the difference. How is the right versus left during meditation?
Yeah, you got action. I initiated this action of inaction, actually, because you're trying not to do something too, right? That's initiation. But at the same time, you've got to inhibit all the unwanted activities. So that's how they're working together. I think thank you for asking, because as you think about it, that's a great example. Because you've got to inhibit and initiate without doing anything at all now. So that's how I would say, for me, that it would be that.
Any more question here?
I have a question.
Yeah, online?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Going back to your stroke patient example, for stroke patients who sustained a flaccid arm, what is it that you do in your practice to help with that?
Okay. Think about flaccidity is going to be totally, if it's truly just flaccid, there's got to be, that would indicate that there's no stimulation at all. None. That means you would have had to have lost every pathway to the nerves that control movement. It could still be warm, it could still have blood flow because there's different stimulations. So you'd have to have such a massive loss of that one area that controls whichever arm you're talking about. With that in mind, that require a lot of, I might hazard a guess that I would do a lot of TENS units all the way up your arm. I would do a lot of muscular stimulation because your brain, think of your brain is prime real estate. And if you lose something, your brain knows that's still there. I mean, it's there. It's just not doing anything. You can rewire with enough effort, enough stimulation, and almost everything just takes a lot of time. In many cases, I've seen, not just guessing, this isn't theory. In many cases, I've seen with enough stimulation, you can actually get those areas to rewire. A really cool example would be something as simple as tricking your brain in a movie. There's called mirror training. You've got a bad arm, for example. Stroke patients. Trauma patients that have lost a limb. Mirror training. You still have those nerve pathways up your leg, up your arm. Say you lose your hand, but you got this. Now you get this thing that says, oh my God, my finger hurts. There's no way. There's no thinking. But that pathway is not being stimulated. So everything in there is screaming for stimulation. That's why these people get trapped out at sea for months at a time, and then they can hear a whole Mozart concerto or something in their head. Because those pathways are screaming for stimulation. They did a real, and I'm sorry, I'm oversleeping. They did a really cool in I don't know how to use it. What's the plate? You put stuff in there and the little plastic scoop thing. You put cells in there. It's called
Petri dish.
Petri dish. Yeah, I'm a great doctor, right? Petri dish. The idea is you got a Petri dish. They put cells in a Petri dish. Boom, nervous cells, neurons. And they said, okay, here, you need oxygen, food, and stimulation. And they said, neurons, oxygen only, neurons, food, glucose only, and neuron stimulation only. Surprise, guess which one lived longer? Anybody? Number 3, the stimulation one. Yes. So think about what's taking place if you lose part of the pathway. Everything around it is trying to get that stuff back. So's your hand and your arm. So what we do is we stimulate the pathway, knowing you didn't lose this, you lost something, receptors up here. And then I might even laser that area because I want the neurons around it, whatever arm it is. I might laser that area. I'll do sound into the brain. I'll do a lot of motor movement on that side with the mouth. Remember, because the mouth is, if you look at what they call the homunculus, you can see where everything is in relation to where it sits in the brain in the area that stimulates it. But for me, I just super stimulate stuff. I like a quote by another doctor that I really admire. He was talking to someone and he said, "You do a great job, but you're Walmart and I'm Amazon." Walmart has a lot of stuff, but Amazon has a lot of stuff. And I follow that pathway. If I could, for one night we worked together, I got over there, made him work all evening. He was so mad at me. Well, he was too tired to be mad. He slept that night, and while we all talked the next morning, I had never seen him sleep that hard in my entire life. We worked for like 3 hours. I'm lasering him. I got him on the platform. You were doing glute bridges for cerebellum stimulation. I was working him like nobody's business to the point where he was and it's brain stuff. He was physically fatigued, and it's wore him out. Because I'm like I said, I'm a big believer in Amazon in terms of my therapy approaches. That's what I would do. I throw so much therapy at you. We've got to stimulate those pathways. When I'm doing a serious case like that, if it's that specific, you might come in and you pay for a whole week ahead of time. And you're going to spend 1 to 2 hours with me every day, or staff with the training stuff. But we give, we're entail an exam, and then I decide what therapies we're going to use. We're using color, we're using smell, we're using laser, we're using biplane, we're using TENS units, I use reflexes hammers all the time. The staff just laughs when they see me walk out of a room with a reflex hammer, and they'll say to the patient, "Boy, he hit you a lot, didn't he?" And they're like, yeah. But look, and now we've got this one guy, same thing. He wasn't flaccid, he was contracted. But by the end of 2 days, he could open his hand and move his fingers. It wasn't great, but it was cool. So lots of stimulation. Sorry.
We'd love to have more questions, actually, brother. But actually, the day he used to come from Florida to Fort Lauderdale, treat me, hard for me to sleep. And when he made the treatment for me, first time, the alarm wake me for Fajr to go to the masjid. In fact, I didn't go to the masjid that day. We prayed together in the house, Salat al-Fajr. How that treatment is. And also to believe in the treatment. But I know the time is already actually about 1 hour now we're speaking here. Okay, one more question. But we have some exercise now together. Brother asked me to exercise. Okay, one question.
How can you improve memorization? I know some signs say active recall, repetition. And what's the best way to memorize?
That's a good question.
Very good question. Think about this is a great question. Yeah. I like this a lot. I haven't even talked about this area of the brain yet. Yeah. Pardon?
I was just saying,
yeah, what you would do, I like this stuff so much. I have a laser that I take home. I use it all the time. I use it all the time. I use it on myself all the time.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about learning, I'm getting ready to take a big, gigantic international exam on neurology.
Yeah.
And there's a group called IAFNR. They've got some interesting stuff, and they got some doctors that really awesome people that I study under. But what we do is, and I'm just mentioning them because I'm just envisioning what they do too. I'll literally laser my brain depending on what I'm trying to accomplish. I do a lot of, when I think about where your memory.
بيتكلموا عن الذاكرة كيف الواحد يقوي الذاكرة تاعته. الذاكرة تاعته كيف هو يسأل سؤال.
So I'll think about where it is. It's your hippocampus is your memory janitor. This is not your memory, they're stored there. They've realized the hippocampus is memory like a janitor in your school or something. You go to them, you don't go to the dean. Where's this? I need help doing that. I need this. They know where, hey, you want to know who runs the school and the building and stuff? Ask the maintenance guy or girl. They know where everything is. They know how things go wrong. They know everything. That's what your hippocampus does. Your hippocampus is in your medial temporal lobe, almost like right here, right through the middle. So what I'll do is I'll literally laser that area. I also like before and after studying to lock stuff in because that directs where my memory is going. I also laser the whole brain because stuff's stored all over the place. Now they can light your brain lights up and they can see where the memory is being pulled from or the different areas that combine to get the memory out. You can also know what else is right there by your hippocampus and why do people lose memory and lose all this stuff in Alzheimer's and different mental diseases. It follows what pathway?
Yes.
Exactly. Your smell centers. You may not know. This is really cool. You have a 20-year alarm clock to Alzheimer's. When you if you permanently lose your sense of smell, you got about 20 years, in a lot of cases, not everyone. They now acknowledge or recognize that if you lose this, you're going to develop Alzheimer's in about 20 years. It's the same area. If you look up your rhino cortex or your olfactory cortex, whatever word you want, olfactory being smell, rhino being the big horn and nose. If you look up those, you'll see where it is. Look where your hippocampus is on your internet pictures. Does that make sense? I mean, it's just, so literally you can use smell to stimulate memory. I want to learn this, I'll always use orange. I want to use, every time I study that class, so before I go in to take that test, orange. Put it on your collar. We just talked about it. It's not cheating. It's stimulating your memory. We want to recall. I want to know what you learned like that. Does that make sense? So, and also, like I said, smell, you should actually understand your memory center, your memory actions for words and thoughts and all that stuff is actually built on your spatial memory. Hippocampus. They did a real cool study. They MRI'd all these London cabins, and they have bigger hippocampuses, hippocampi, or whatever. They have bigger areas than everyone else.
Okay, one day I'll invite the doctor to speak about this topic. He made a license right now. He's specialist about this topic right now. In fact, my wife, he encouraged my wife to do the same thing. So it's very important topic. I know at the time I'm running very fast. But some exercise now, we can show us some exercise, inshallah. He did it with me, and who want to volunteer to be cracked his neck?
Well, actually, if we could, let me, I'll do my daughter's neck, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I haven't had a chance to test everyone to make sure you're safe. And then, Musa, we can do a thoracic thing because we've already been with that.
And also for the back, if I'll show us the back, we'll have this table. All right, inshallah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now we have an action now. Yes, when you stop, we'll follow with the camera. So. Sunnahfollowers, we need the phone. That one is Sunnahfollowers. Yes.
Yes.
We need somebody to control the phone and somebody control the iPad, inshallah. Sure. Okay. Well, action.
Did Sister Layla, I'm sorry, did
Sister Layla.
she have any questions at all?
Sunnahfollowers, any questions, Sunnahfollowers? Sunnahfollowers.
No?
No.
questions.
Okay. Okay.
All right. We'll start right.
Name the
And we talked about it earlier. The reason we're going to talk about just my adjustment sign. This is great chiropractic. This one is so balanced, mashallah. There's no need for any functional neurology. It's so good. Yeah. Even, and I gotta tell you, it's you've got to realize that it's optimization. You know, these professional athletes, these CEOs, these guys come to us to improve function. It's so you've got to understand what functional, like for example, functional neurology is. It's not about just, I don't deal with just stroke patients. I give homework to people that appear normal that I see a little glitch, if I can say that, and we want to ramp up and optimize. Imagine what you've done in your lives, and you're only 70% of your total function. I'm going to measure that. I'm going to do my test, and I'm going to say, you need to do this, and this, or things, or whatever, homework I give you. But I've been working with my dog for a long time. So, as we talked about earlier, there's x-rays we do, there are tests we do, there are different things, we do a lot of potential disc, and we do other stuff. But so that we can counteract all this crazy scratch stuff and all this yanking and loud noise stuff, it's not a big deal. What I do is I palpate with my daughter, and I find the area that's not moving well. I compare it, and then I use other trigger points, and that tells me where to look. There's a lot of indicators in the body once we learn in school. And then x-rays are awesome. I x-ray almost everybody to make sure there's nothing overlooked. You'd be surprised what people look like with no skin on. It's amazing. One woman came in with a real bad cough. I took the x-rays, and she said, I've been fighting cold for a while. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's cool. I look at the x-rays. She's got TB of the spine. She's been sick for so long. Tuberculosis goes where? Migraines to the bones, especially to the spine. I took the vertebral shot, and I'm like, oh my God, look, wow. And that's the only patient I've ever seen. And then I looked at it, and I had, as a chiropractor where I practice, we're not allowed to make a medical diagnosis like that. But how do I convince her it's not a cold? I told her, I said, literally, you need to go to the hospital now. You've been sick for, I think it was 6 months or whatever it was. Just imagine how long she had tuberculosis in America and all that stuff. And I'm looking, and then imagine if I don't take x-rays and I start adjusting, and she's got TB of the spine. They're probably a compression fracture while I'm working. So I x-ray a lot of people because of that. I want to prevent the worst case scenario stuff.
What are you feeling here?
Boy, is this stuff. Is that sore?
Yeah.
I mean, sorry. Yeah, no, you yelled at the whole drive back. But the idea is that she had TB, and there it is on the x-ray. That's why I do it. And then, of course, she needed some adjustments too, but I wasn't going to do that until we got the TB. It's life-threatening. You can live with pain for a little while. You already have. She told me she hurt forever. And I'm like, oh, you picked today to come in. Thank God. So relax. And then it's literally, watch how little the movement is. Juice. But the idea is, think about how small that was. Because as I turn and you might go, we're using her muscular tension to help do what I do. And then the contact, if you don't notice, like when over here, it's almost right there. So this is the movement. It's not a whole like this thing. And I've had people, I've seen it, it just looks crazy. Now, this is stabilization. I'm actually working around it, holding the other steady, because I want just this to move with me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then she relaxes, we create the tension. I'm right here. Boop. hold on. I know it's not as dramatic and fun as the other videos, but that's what we're doing. It's literally, and if the vertebra is off, imagine the tension, your spinal cord attaches down the canal, front, back, side to side. So imagine your cord's in there, and this one is turned that way, and this one's turned that way. You Indian rub your spinal cord, if you know what Indian rub. You literally, you're doing this with your spinal cord. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it attaches everywhere. So you want it to be as in alignment as possible. And then, then we literally, like I was talking to a brother earlier today, I'll count areas as I go across my shoulder, and I'll go, oh yeah, right there, this side. So I'm working, I literally count 1 to 10 here, like 12, that's it. 7.
So what can you feel when you touch these areas? How do you know what to adjust?
So what I'm going to do, okay, so here we go. Let's close my eyes. I'm working on safety touch. So I come across, and as I'm moving across, I know this is the area right there. That's a count. So I've got a little, think of it as a muscle spasm. Don't do this at home. Think of it as a muscle spasm, but I count across. Now it's on the right side. So as I glide down the spine, I know what number this is. And I'm going to go down and check that area, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9, and I'll palpate to see if there's movement. I'll also palpate kind of for a bigger side, if that means rotate it backwards, and there we are. And then I nudge that one. And then we do the same thing across the lower back. I'm counting L5, L4, L3, L2, L1.
So do you feel a tenseness here? That's where it connects? Is that the point?
Yes, in most cases. Now, I may come in here and say, oh, it's only a muscle spasm. Because I come down here and I don't find anything. Well, that's the override. It's just no big deal. It's just muscle spasm, leave it alone. There's no, it's kind of an art and science, if I can say that. Yeah. So, and the lighter the touch you can use, there's only, if it's off inside, like with a neck, in 2 different locations. If it's off, it's already a little bit of what you can consider spinal trauma taking place. So these big movements are like it. You don't want to introduce more force into a trauma area, from my point of view. Now you got other people that are big and dramatic, and I'm cool. But those aren't people. It's just a preference. You can do whatever you want to.
Good, amazing. I've ever felt.
Can you? Yes, please. Yes. Thank you. By the way, she have more sisters home. She's only one, but next time come with the whole family, a big family.
No, I had a chance to look at MRIs. So,
again, Brother Salah did the MRI. That's why you're checking him now.
And there didn't appear to be any big gigantic contraindications. And then when you do say I want to rule out disc impinging a nerve, I'm going to go over here and I apply a little pressure. Did he scream out or cry? Okay, so probably not compressing the nerve root and coming out. Then this is kind of a superficial test, like I said, I'm just showing you. And then we go into extension and apply, and he didn't get mad at me. So,
I've been mad for 2.5 years.
yeah, right. Yeah. So his MRI is confirmed that he's got some stuff at C4, C5, what do you say, C5, C6, and that's usually what happens in the neck. That's C4, C5, C5, C6. That C5 is like almost always the peak of your curve, front to back, right? Your shaft curve. So that's usually the one that takes the biggest run, depending on how you injured it, it could be lower or higher. And then he's got a huge issue. We saw it on the MRI. We saw the different angles right here. So I'm just going to nudge this one a little bit, okay? Now, in his case, there's a lot of muscle spasm. So I'm not going to fight through that. If it does not let go, I'm not going to yank it harder. Does that make sense? Like I said, there's trauma already because he's got disc injuries, disc issues. He's already got pain, so I'm going to try to push through the pain. It just doesn't make sense. And I use instruments at the office to help it move also. And again, it's just a little baby finger right there. You let it fall over and let go as much as you can. Now you see how restricted it is. So I'm already aware of this. And then side note, I'm not using his jaw. I can feel it in my hand, but I'm still using the finger to do my movements. Let it fall as much as you can, close your eyes, relax, all that good stuff. And a real cool side note based on fetal development and everything, turn your eyes. Your eye muscles actually, if I can say it this way, ripple away from your neck muscles when your body develops. Everything back here, going blah, 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 blah. And your eyes, if you hear something, you want to, survival, right brain. Whoa, initiation, I look, okay, it's safe, I come back. Your neck muscles respond to eye movement. So if a patient's really tense, I'll tell them to look in the direction I want them to go. So I relax, relax, let it fall over a little, tilt sideways, and just let it go. Relax right here.
There you go. Yeah.
Are they?
Everybody for that? Smile.
It's like those doggy. It's like those. Yeah.
Remember being the one that gets
Yeah. He's very right brain. Look at that. He hears the stuff he screams for it.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool, isn't it? And it's literally as a chiropractor, it's no big deal. Don't do this at home because literally I had classmates and I've had other chiropractors. It's a feel. I didn't put through the lower one. It didn't go. It may be a little, but it's not always like that. That's like, I don't do that, but that's just the joint space opening up, the gas and fluid pushing out, then fills up right away, because like we were talking about earlier, it can't be bone on bone, because you rub it raw, it would hurt every time, and then eventually you wear it down and it's gone. It can't be bone on bone. It's your cassette capsules that make the noise. All I have to do is open the capsule enough, and you may hear something. In my case, I'm being real specific on my movement. That's what separates the clowning around from the real thing.
As a matter of fact, a neurosurgeon that I went to see, he said that you should have the injection into the facet joint.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because you've got these two nerves that you but you've got stuff everywhere. So imagine you've got these nerves firing through that joint. If this bone, if the back is facing you guys, right? And no, that doesn't make sense. If the back is on my side and I feel it and I'm trying to pull it, that means he's actually, the vertebra is rotated this way and I'm pulling it. So imagine what's going on the facet capsule behind it back here, and there's a twist in it. Those nerves are firing, telling him, I pulled it this way. So those nerves are firing, telling him his head is looking back, right? That's what the nerve is saying. His eyes are saying, no, I'm looking straight ahead. But the neck feels like it's this way. That's confusion by itself within your head. There's distracting information from you. But that's what we do. That's not.
Thank you for coming. Come out.
Yes. Yeah, it's right there. Right. Go sharpen knives. Absolutely. Yes. This is high velocity action.
Well, the second one.
No, I mean both of them. That's all I do. That's considered what it is considered fast movement. You want me to be fast. That's what I just did. That's what we consider high velocity.
And he gave me a laser also. Machine laser. I use helped me a lot.
Let's talk about that shoulder. Remember the shoulder one? Yep. Okay. Hold this arm straight out.
Mission.
Yep. Do not let me push it down.
No,
Right there. Keep it right here. Go. Good. Now this looks normal, right? Good.
no.
Now the injured shoulder. Same thing. Go. You see the changes? He's holding it, but he leans away. He makes faces. Everything changed. I mean, everything changed. Back down to that. Okay, now I'm actually going to fake the brain out a little bit, right? Because I'm thinking he's showing an anteriority. And the way he described his initial injury, he fell, rolled it in, and jammed it. So what you do is I grab it and I want to move it in the direction that I want to correct it to speak. So he stays right there. And then all I do is shoulder along the back, the arm, so I pull there. Now, give it a second. Technically, it's about 20 seconds. Within that 20-second range, I pulled his brain. Resist as hard as you can, go. Still hard, but he's not working as hard. I'm pushing as hard as I was earlier, okay? So, relax. That tells me the shoulder is sitting anterior in the joint, and we have to nudge it back a little bit. The thing is, it's so minimal that even on x-rays, you take it before and after, you wouldn't see the change in the position. You just, it's not that big. In chiropractic, we deal in millimeters. That's why, when we talk about high velocity, that it's force that you don't want high force adjustments. You want fast, you want speed, but you don't want a lot of force to be introduced physically. Yeah, that's stuff. And that's what we got to avoid. Yeah, go ahead and stand up. Yeah. Okay. Now, real simple. It's just, turn this. Now, all I'm going to do, again, remember I said millimeters? So my chest protects his shoulder joint. Does that make sense? Now I'm right here. He's not going anywhere. Now, relax. Let go. No, relax. Relax. Sleeping. Good. No big deal. You don't even hardly see anything. Go ahead and sit down. Hopefully this worked today. There are times when it's not perfect and I have to spend a lot of time with the patient. Okay. Nope, I'm straight up. Yep. Okay. Now, resist as hard as you can. Go. I gotta tell you, I think it looks a little better. I'm not sure. Okay. Does it feel better? You're not just saying that because you're trying to be nice. No, but the idea is the injury is it's this way. Like patients that come in and say, "Oh my God, I woke up this morning, my shoulder's killing me." What are you doing in your sleep?
The reason Dr. Rahman with the youth, when we met him, he hurt himself. Yeah.
And it went forward. So all I did was nudge it backwards. Now what I would say is do exercises to strengthen up the muscles back here, to retrain the shoulder to hold back. We do. I like real lightweight face pulls. I like a lot of rowing exercises. I tend to recommend to my patients palms up because so much of what we do causes internal rotation, which aggravates forward shoulder movement. That's why I don't do a lot of pull downs because of the way your lats attach into your high in your armpit. If you overdo your lats and you don't maintain a good muscular bands, you increase the risk of internal rotation. And what does that look like? You start getting Alzheimer's and you look at it. Well, you don't have posture. Good posture is up here, right? So what I would recommend is low to high pulls, base pulls, and rowing exercises. I use a lot of cables. I got some injuries also. I use a lot of cables in my personal life. So, okay, that would be good. No, you are today. They've already been doing it. Okay, go ahead, sit down. Let's check his shoulder. Okay, anybody that doesn't want to watch chiropractic, I will not be offended. Okay, so we take the good one. This is how I set your normal, right? Read this, go. Good. Oh, you know what's a cool test too? I like to, when I talk to high schools, watch this. That was his normal, right? Leave your head there. Now watch. As hard as you can, go. Is that harder or easier? Yeah, I just wrecked his cervical curve, didn't I? Now, let's see if most people have a bad curve to begin with. Let's make it better or exaggerate it. Sometimes I'll actually see improvements in the strength right here. Resist as hard as you can, go. Better, worse, or the same? Whatever you want to tell me. Same. Okay, as compared to, go. Okay, good. So, sometimes like I'll tilt it back and they'll get even stronger because their curve is so bad to begin with. I artificially improve it. Now, remember what we did over there. Same thing. Ready? Go. No surprises. How do you feel inside? What? Is it weak or stronger? The same? This is stronger than this one.
No, this is.
I'm sorry, okay. That bothered you more.
Yeah.
You got it. Okay, well, again, I'm not dealing with healing a tear. I'm not dealing with anything. All I'm checking is an anterior humerus. Okay, all I'm looking at is the arm bone is forward, teeny, teeny, tiny in the shoulder joint. Make sense? Okay, go ahead. Come up. Stand up. Good. Now, for the office, I also have a little instrument I use. It's called an arthrostim, and I will repetitively drive that back very gently and right on the head of the human before they hate it. It hurts, but that's just that area is sore. All I have to do that is just kind of so imagine I'm trashing it with an instrument. Driving crazy. Oh my God. Relax. Let it fall. You didn't let it fall. Lay it down. Good. Lay it down. That wasn't the shoulder joint. That was his body hitting my lateral. Go ahead, please. Don't sit down yet. I move the chair. That'd be great on video. Go ahead and sit down. You okay? Okay. Now, again, like I tell my patients, be honest with me. Tell me whether it's working or not. Go. Resist. Feel it's good. All right. So literally, you don't see a big movement, do you? It's just it doesn't take place. There's most everything we do. It's just change what doesn't work right. If it's a little forward, move it a little back. If it's off, it's done.
Okay. Actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it earlier, but I was born with microtia, so a lot of my hearing on my right side didn't have any of it, so I'm getting a hearing aid. So how you mentioned the rewiring of motor functions. Since I recently got my hearing aid, do you think my age being how old I am, would that rewiring, would it be too late, or is it still kind of?
No, every day.
Every day?
Every day. Just think about it. That's a great example. You got the device, you ramp up however it works, you ramp up the sound stimulation, and you're hearing better. So that means there's been a positive change. It's literally, that's what neuroplasticity is. And if you MRI the brain, or what they call fMRI, I believe, you can actually see the areas doing what they do. And QEEG, oh my gosh, that's really cool. When you're lasering somebody and they're doing a measurement, an QEEG measurement, oh my God, you can actually see the waves, alpha, beta, theta, delta, gamma. You see them come alive in the brain. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. I had an accident since I was young.
Yeah.
I broke my arm. And since that, every time I'm trying to lift up weights, go to the gym, I can't really expand.
Where'd you break it?
Over here.
Yeah.
Right in the elbow.
Well, we could check. There's an ulnar nerve.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a really cool test too.
Yeah, it was a command son.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, what we're gonna do, I'm just, if he broke the elbow or broke the arm, you probably jammed the elbow. You've got the ulna and the radius here. You've got the ulnar nerve that travels. When you bang your elbow.
How long is it?
Wow. 12. And you're
I
not
just want to make sure that
It's fine.
like 20 or R20. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. No, the idea is think about what takes place. If he broke it, think could he have jammed it and nudged this, messed with this joint over here, the way the ulna and the radius interact with the upper arm, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that ulnar nerve helps control the muscles that do this. Palm up. Now we'll check the wrist because the elbow's not involved. Oh, what I was going to say is that you bang the funny nerve, not the funny bone. That's the ulnar nerve. You can actually, that's soft tissue right there. That's a nerve. So resist as hard as you can. Keep these two together. Do not let me move them apart. Go. Excellent. That's about normal. As long as it stays closed. Now all we do is change the angle of the elbow. That's all I've done. Let's see what happens. Resist as hard as you can. Go. Okay. All I did was change the angle of his elbow. I didn't work out today. Resist as hard as you can. You go. Who's got a 20? If you can keep this 20 in here, you get to have it. Go. You're broke. Okay. So, put your 20 in there and I get that. No. Again, it's all healed. He's got no underlying things we have to worry about. All right. So just turn this, you know what? Let's stay right like that. Okay. So all we did was change where the ulna was. So we pulled the nerve closer to by turning it, the ulna went this way, but the nerve changes in that groove right there. So now what I'm going to do, you'll you can, and I'm going to contact the ulna. Again, it's high velocity, but low movement. The leverage, it's not a big move. You'll see, I don't move it a lot. While you can actually watch his arm, it's just not a big deal. This I'm holding steady. There's nothing going to happen with this end of it. It's all literally right here. Okay, and I've got the same instrument I use on the shoulder. Some patients can't relax for me, so I'll just use that repetitive tapping, and eventually it might just go. But then we just lay it down and relax it. Good. And it's not a dislocation. It might look like a lot, but it's just not. Relax, relax, legs. That didn't. There you go. Okay, now, really cool. Let's test it the way we just did. Palm up. Make sure I didn't do anything wrong. Breathe as hard as you can go. Still, it didn't move. Now, palm down. Restart. Resist as hard as you can. Go. Go. That's a lot better.
Oh yeah.
Wait a minute. That's we can't. Yeah. Resist as hard as you can. Go. You got the 20? I'm not giving it to you this time. You are not coming apart. Cool. So you see, now when you look at his arm, you don't see a big, oh my God, his arm's straight now, or it changed, or I dislocated it. It's millimeters of movement changing the stimulation along this. We got rid of the interference here. So now he can control those muscles right here in his hand. That's all we did was, and how simple was that test? Bang here, wrist, and that's a lot of carpal tunnel stuff. So you pull the lunate out of the way. Or in his case, it was directly the elbow and the ulnar irritation. Does that make sense? And I didn't trick you or anything, right? Okay, good.
With the shoulders, is there much you can really do in terms of like loosening them or stretching them out? Because I have really bad shoulder problems, and I blame a lot of it on my sleep and posture. But
Don't sleep anymore.
Yeah.
Well, just go a couple days and see how it works out.
Because like they're always really tight, or I have a lot of knots, and I can never, aside from maybe just doing this and trying to stretch it out, that's all I can.
Well, think about that. The easiest thing to do. It's like something she always says, man, how do you figure that stuff out off your head? It's not off the top of our heads, is it? I mean, she knows that. It's literally learn what's there and work with that. Like if
it falls a lot back here where the tricep.
Okay, then you've also got what else is back there along with your tricep. You've got 3 different heads, right? Now you've also got your posterior deltoids, you've got your supraspinatus, you've got your infraspinatus attaches in there, your 2 teres muscles come over. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look at the pictures. And like I tell my patients, look at the pictures. If you don't want to pay our massage therapist, get a foam roller, get a massage gun, and then start doing just the range of motion stuff that you feel impeded on. How far back? If it's behind you, then this is probably fine. So you leave your pecs alone. Or maybe they're so tight, they're pulling you forward and you feel the problem back here because these are overstretched. Now you work on the back muscles and that's not your problem. That's the symptom. The problem could be you're too tight. I mean, at 62 years old, I really pay attention to my ranges of motion. You know, football in high school and college, the injuries, I'm not a big guy to begin with. Eventually they caught me every now and then. You got stuff. What you have to do is look at what is being interfered with and then figure out how you can work with that and change it. It's just, I mean, everything goes back. It really is. It's clearly, it's all there. You just have to look at it and do what's necessary. In your case, literally, if it's bothering you back here, first thing you do is check what's going on with your pec major and your pec minor. An easy way to test minor is right in there. If it's super, super tender, just below your clavicle up here, then that's probably too tight.
Because I have it on both.
Okay, there you go.
It's the same on both sides.
And most of us get sore behind us, but when you tell me you wake up painful, how does that even make sense? You should be rested, right? It shouldn't hurt. You haven't done anything. So what you do is, so then you evaluate. You're a side sleeper, and that's actually the way you should. Never sleep on your stomach. If you're a side sleeper, what do? This arm comes forward all night long. All night long. You're stretching it. All night long, you're stretching your back muscles. All night long. So where do you think the problem is? The arm's actually forward. The front is too tight, and you got to loosen this up to get this to go away. Patients come into me and they're going, "Oh my God." And it's really cool because it's obvious. Once I say it, you guys know my patients like, "Oh, that makes sense."
Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he speaks, either his right side and like this. This bit along. I leave that card. I can give it to you. And on.
So think about what takes place there. When we're talking about, say, the cervical curve, should be this way, right? 35, 45 degrees, depending on the surgery. There it is. That's good curve. Now, picture this. If it's supposed to be like that, here's the back of my head, back of my neck. Here's the front. That's normal. Patients come into me and they go, "Oh my God, my neck is killing me. It's spasming like crazy. Holy cow, my back." When you walk in and you look at me and I see you're supposed to be like this, but your posture is like this. And I see your x-rays and your curve is no longer curved, but your head is way too far forward. You've got a straight line there from your vertebra, right? You may look good on the outside because it's straight, but on the inside, it shouldn't be straight up and down because you're doing this to your discs. A curve allows a dissipation of forces. So if you come in and you tell me your back's killing you, what should I think? If you're spasming, you should walk in and talk to me like this. "Man, my neck is so tight, so I can't even think straight." None of my patients look up to me like that. Even the short ones don't look at me like this. They're tight in the back because the front is pulling so hard that the back hurts because it can't go any farther. It's stretched, it hurts. Then what do? You pay your massage therapist, and it's not a criticism on massage. They're dealing with what you asked for and what you paid for. The idea is, though, you should be working on getting the front to let go. Because if it's this, and I loosen this more, I'm going even farther the wrong way. So that's why you always have to go back. Or even to me, if you don't do homework, I help you improve, but you don't get better. Well, I shouldn't say that. Patients get a lot better. But the idea is to really, you've got to take your own action steps. Right back to our religion. You've got to take action. And it's more than just coming to me for a quick fix, if that makes sense. Because you're 7 days. You come to me once a week or even 3 times a week. There's 4 days a week and all day that you're not in my office. That you're sitting poorly, you're looking poorly, you're working poorly, you're kneeling poorly, you're sleeping on your stomach, you're driving all day with a foot up or leaning or stuff, right? You watch TV. If I sit in your recliner, I can tell exactly how you sit. Because I'm going to sit down and I'm going to feel like I'm like leaning on your armrest or even your car seat, right? I can tell you where your TV is because you're like, it matches what you do to it all the time. And your car seat feels the same way too. You've got to think if you're sore right here, that's way too tight. So I'm going to start stretching all of the front to get my back to let go after that big long example.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, guys, Jazakallah khair. That is very fast, inshallah. I would love to have, inshallah, maybe one time we will invite the doctor here to make it.
All his family.
Yeah?
All his family comes.
Yeah, our family will actually vacation.
Yeah, vacation. Yeah.
Vacation on the
Boy, that's tough tying all those kids together. Well, there's only
Vacation in
4
one time. Yeah.
inshallah.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Sunnahfollowers was the time, but actually, no question, but not a topic.
If they send them to us, we can send them back. We will.
you have the screen.
Yes, if you have any questions, Sunnahfollowers, you can text me. I will text it to AbdurRahman, or I text brother Daniel to Sister Layla and we in touch. I will text Sister Layla inshallah the phone number. Inshallah. Yes. All right. Huh?
Finish.
السلام عليكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك اللهم يا رب يا مقلب قلوب دائما تثبت قلوب على دينك دائما
آمين.
واهدنا الحق يا رب وارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه
آمين.
وارنا الباطل باطلا